We've had an incredible day for the first ever Climate Governance Conclave. I think this has been incredible. Congratulations, Team Marksmen. You guys have done a fantastic job. And I know we've been the advisory panel, but really, you guys were the ones this is where rubber hits the road, and you made it happen. Thank you so much. So, starting with the rose amongst the thorns, I wanted to ask each of you, what has been your main takeaway from today? We've heard from so many great speakers, including yourselves. We've had insights, we've had a lot of points of views shared, and being the first ever Climate Governance Summit in India, I'd like to think that we've approached the climate emergency from a different perspective, from the perspective of governance, a subset of corporate governance, as in how we're managing, identifying, mitigating these risks, but also how we're seizing opportunities. So, Emily, could you kick us off? What are your thoughts as to about today's content and lineup?
I guess there's a couple of things I took away from this. I think, given the pressure India is under in the context of what climate change impacts are really meaning on the ground here, I've been really heartened by the focus on the opportunity to fix the problem. I think not just the kind of hope and the inspiration, but actually the action, which I guess is really what we're here to talk about. There are so many tangible projects happening on the ground. There is such a maturity of understanding of the topics. The policy is there, or at least the direction that we need to go in is there. So I think that there is just this real sense of can do now. It really is about not the basics any longer. It really is to do with acceleration. And I think what's particularly exciting is the recognition of the leadership role that India has to play in showing the rest of the world how to do it, quite frankly.
That's a very important question, and in fact I think that is an analysis the organizers would need to do when they start planning the next one, and I will agree with Emily. For me, there were two very important takeaways. One was, I think the process of formulating the whole concept of this conclave. We were involved with that, and I've been in this field not for so long in India. I was abroad mostly. But I think the title of the conclave is something which is very unique. One has attended a lot of climate change conferences all over the world. I think we talk a lot about the problem itself in most of these conclaves. But I think this whole climate governance issue is something that's very, very neglected. And what second thing which really I liked was that we were not talking of the problem but solutions, about action. And I think that was a very, very unique USP of this conference. Everyone knows the problem at different levels. A common citizen to a politician, to a bureaucrat, to an academic. We all know what climate change is at different levels of our understanding. And we seldom talk about solutions. So I think that was a very big takeaway for me.
For me, the biggest takeaway, of course, I double-click on what Mr. Bagai said about action. We saw the need for action in energy, in water, in governance, across the board. But the two big takeaways for me were the big opportunity through CGI to actually make this awareness go across the length and breadth of India as a potential leader in this whole activity of making sure that we can change the whole direction. It also made me feel that the boards can now bring this in as their DNA, because that's where the leadership will start getting the support that they need, the resourcing that they need. And therefore, I think that was a very big takeaway for me. But beyond everything else, I was most impressed by what Eric said in the morning. And he reminded us all that if India has to be the leader, then we will have to lead through dharma and take it to the level of spirituality if we are to actually make the dent and make the difference. For me, that was a very, very big revelation.
First, I would like to thanks to Maxman team. They are doing wonderful job. So my takeaway, I'm thinking this is the right time for our country. We have sufficient policies, and I would like to share some numbers. Last 600 years, whatever the construction happened, in coming 30 years, more than we will do the construction. So this is the perfect time. And now government understanding this, all stakeholder understanding this. This is perfect time for going now for execution. Because the speed and the economy and the scalability what India needed, I don't think so anybody in the world is required for this. And current scenario, the major challenge what we facing maybe terms of energy, water and air. But the good thing is we are starting, like our country for not till now like very heavy infrastructure on vertical. So many new things, data centers. So we are on right time, right age and right policies we have. So I think it's a perfect, we start to implementing whatever we are discussing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love that. I think you've encapsulated a lot of the views that the audience themselves must be having. What really struck me was the amount of ambition that was in this room from the speakers that we heard. And I think maybe it's time, India is coming into its own, it's time for the rest of the world to hear about these stories. And the Climate Governance Initiative Network is a really good way of explaining to other boardrooms outside India about the good work that's happening here. So the next and final question will be, we're intending for this to be the beginning of a long journey in relation to the Climate Governance Summit, as you're aware. We've had some discussions about this. What do you think is the low-hanging fruit for next year? What could we be doing to, whether it's showcasing best practices, weeding out really good speakers, providing some thought leadership so even policymakers and regulators are a bit more aspirational? I know we heard this morning that the 2070 target will most probably be met ahead of time, and this is how rigorously the government is pushing for this. But how can we be more ambitious and translate this ambitious into action? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Sunita. One of the things that we hear from our network all around the world is that directors are really feeling the pressure of needing to know about so many different topics, and climate and nature are just two of them. And so what they really appreciate is having that kind of connectivity with others in the same shoes as they are. They really enjoy that connection. So I think the more of that we can do, I think it would really help. And then I guess the second point that we also hear, again, consistently across the global network is examples of where board directors have really been able to cut through, like what's worked in the boardroom. What have they done to kind of get through the difficult trade-offs and negotiations around making a tough investment decision? And I think if we were able to capture some of those success stories in the context of businesses in India to show the rest of the world and also, you know, amongst themselves, I think that would be really, really valuable.
That's a very important question, and I think we need to first understand what our target audience is going to be, which will help in designing the future conferences. And I believe our audience would be mostly Global South to be looking at. And I think two things we should certainly be looking at, as Emily was saying, meaning at a planetary level we are facing three crises and not one. The one crisis of climate change is not the only crisis we are facing. we are facing the crisis of nature, and we are facing the crisis of pollution. And I think if you want to make these conferences holistic and intersectoral, one will need to design an agenda that would bring out interlinkages between climate, nature, and pollution. Because if you're acting on pollution, that's going to have co-benefits for climate change also, and vice versa. So I think that will give a holistic view of the planetary problem. The second, I think, as Emily says, the solutions is going to be the focus. It should be the focus for Global South, because they're actually looking for technology solutions, financial solutions, and I think that should be really the core focus of these conferences. And finally, from an organizer's point of view and from an audience point of view, and I was very impressed with what Emily said in her last statement, concluding statement about the mindset. And I think that's the most important factor which we should try to inculcate through these conferences. In India, we have a very important old saying about Atithi Devo Bhav, that a guest we treat as a god. I think these conferences should take forward another paradigm, Prakriti Devo Bhav, that nature is like God. And I think that mindset change is something that we should encourage.
No, Sunita, what I felt is, suppose this room that we have was broken into 4 components. One consisting of people who are actually sitting on boards and driving boards, that kind of thing. One who are the implementers, that is people who are engaged in the implementation of all the work that we talked about. Regulators, as you rightly pointed out, so that they could see the interaction. And aspiring directors and aspiring people who want to work in the sustainability space. So if we had that kind of a dialogue, we would be creating fresh stewards of planet, fresh stewards of governance. And I see that as a very, very important role. And if that works, then it's highly replicable in terms of taking it to various cities in India, because it doesn't happen only in Delhi or in Mumbai. It happens, I mean, I've seen some of the finest board meetings I've attended have been in Bangalore and Hyderabad. And so therefore it is so vital. I should not forget Ahmedabad, where I go most often. But I think that's really something that I feel might be valuable for us as the next step at CGM.
I think for next step or low-hanging what we are discussing, we have to make policies what is favorable for the like a small projects or maybe for educational level. Because what I feel, government making the policies and still we are thinking sustainability is someone else's responsibility. Or the big organizations, they are thinking directly linking with the profitability. Is my personal view. Like policies we have to work on both sides, and something what we execute easily, very small changes, at least we cannot generate, at least we can save and we can consume responsibly. And this education, it should be go to bottom of the pyramid. Because the generation is limited, resources are limited, but whatever we are consuming, it should be like very responsible. So the education system going on that level, and I think it should be very easy, practicable, and it should be implemented ASAP, whatever on government organization level.
Very good, excellent. Big round of applause for our panel today. Thank you.